think you have to talk really,
I think this will be okay. Thank you. So one of the things that they teach you when you become a president is how to do a wave, a parade wave. I would call it a princess wave, but Chris might be like, I don't wave like that. So Ahniwake and I are just going to talk briefly, kind of setting the context for the very challenging, disruptive time that we're in. And we hope through this discussion, continue that path of well-being and resilience and the hope really that our ancestors put forward for us in the work that we do. And like I shared this morning, that, life-changing, transformative work that everyone does. So we contextualize the work that we're doing in Native higher education and Native education, along with all the work that's being done around governance and health and, just about everything in the context of treaty and trust obligations. So that's always at the forefront of the way that we share our story and invite others to be partners and in relationship with us. So this is actually, the College Fund has a lot of interaction that we do with the media. And one of the decisions we made early on in this process was if you're a reporter that wants to talk to me or someone at the College Fund, we send a statement to you. And that statement is basically this, that we're not racial or ethnic group, we are citizens of sovereign nations. So we have a political status that has legal and moral obligations for the United States, and that relationship has been upheld through the Constitution and through the courts. If you then are wanting to still do the interview or still be in relationship with us, you agree to that, then we will do that. So it's available to you as a way to engage, with people in your community, something you can share with your students. There's a lot written about this, especially recently, as we're all trying to help others understand. One of the things that I think we all agree is that many people in the administration and in Congress don't know anything about Indians. So, or they think they know, and we need to correct them. So part of that is to ensure the commitment to treaty and trust obligations.
Cheryl, can you pause right there? Because I think one of the things I want to share with everyone is that when the first executive order rolled out around DEI, AHEC didn't engage in conversations when we were being asked from the media because they weren't approaching it from this perspective. The conversation was all about diversity. And so unless we could frame it within a trust and treaty obligation in our political relationship, we weren't engaging in those media conversations. And so I think you can look at some of those early pieces that were coming out and you didn't see a lot from Indian country because we did not want to be included in any conversation that was strictly DEI. So I really appreciate this framework.
Yeah, we also state that tribal colleges and universities are not minority-serving institutions. So that's also a very common categorization of the tribal colleges. But again, because we are chartered entities of our tribes and therefore an extension of our tribes, we're not serving a minority, we are serving citizens of our tribes. So that's another aspect of that kind of outreach and education, and even with our own people, to remind ourselves of that identity and those relationships. And then the other thing that I wanted to share is just broadly why do we care about higher education policy? Why do we advocate? So the tribal colleges and universities serve about 11% of the Native people who go to, American Indian Alaska Native people who go to college. Native Americans serving non-tribal institutions serve about 11% of the people who, American Indian Alaska Native people who go to higher education. This occurs at the same time that there has been a significant decline in the number of Native people going to college. So our voices are critical. The tribal college voice is critical. Support of our Native students who are attending other institutions is critical for us to be involved with. We also recognize that data collection is dismal. One of the reasons that we think there might be a decline showing is that institutions don't know how to count Native students. So I didn't put the link in here, but the College Fund did maybe I put the link later, but we did a big convening where we brought together a lot of scholars and educators, policy organizations, and we looked at Native higher education policy. And we named 3 areas that were of great concern to us. One was the anti-DEI movement that was kind of coming to fruition a few years ago, and we were starting to see state laws passed that were impacting then Native programs and Native students. Another was the issues around ensuring students' success with high school graduation, and then that opportunity for them to have a pathway to college. But the third big area was data collection, and the fact that there's a real challenging aspect to collecting data. And I'm really proud that the College Fund and other Native organizations in higher ed are working in that area. And then we also know, though, from our research that students thrive when they are seen and have a sense of belonging. And so always in our efforts to support students in their higher education experience is to advocate for that no matter where you go to school, you should be seen, you should be valued, you should be represented in that environment. And then we recognize also, though, that tribal nation relations for us, for other Native, for Native serving institutions and for students and in higher education institutions, that needs to be strengthened. That we always need to work toward having high quality, very impactful, engaged relationships with our tribal nations. So that's another aspect of this that was really important to us. Ahniwake's going to discuss some of the work that AHEC is doing.
Thank you. So I could spend the rest of the 2 hours talking about what's going on in DC right now, so I won't. We'll just talk a little bit about AHEC and kind of the work that we're doing. I wanted to share with you that advocacy work is really the backbone of what AHEC was founded for. The tribal colleges came together and requested us to have a presence, not unlike the other national Native organizations that are in DC. We're your space and place. We are your voice on the Hill. We're the ones that carry your stories to help ensure that the impact of our tribal colleges are being understood and spoken about in the way that they need to be. So when we go to the Hill, we're reaching out to our presidents frequently to find out what's going on. Because just to advocate on behalf of Title III, for example, doesn't tell our representatives, our senators, the story of what's actually happening with those Title III dollars. It doesn't talk about the staff and the faculty. It doesn't talk about the programs and the services. It doesn't talk about the direct impact that it's going to have on your students. So your stories and what you're able to share with us is so incredibly vital and critical to the success of our advocacy work at AHEC. So we're going to be working a lot to figure out better ways that we can have upward and downward communication from AHEC so that we can really ensure that your stories, what's happening at the faculty level, at the staff level, is really being told in our advocacy work. Another good example is something that's happening right now in Pell. There is a conversation that's taking place in Congress that would make significant impacts to the way that Pell will be distributed for part-time and full-time students. And we reached out to our presidents and we requested them to share that data. That data was immediately turned around and turned into one-pagers, turned into template letters, turned into op-ed stories. And so the real world impact that it will have on your students was immediately being able to share at Congress. I can go all day long, but it's really your stories, right? Your representatives and your congressional members need to hear from you about what that day-to-day impact is. So what AHEC does for you on an advocacy space is not just work directly with Congress and the administration, but also with all of the federal agencies. So while we're also we're telling your story to Congress, we're telling your story to the White House, we're telling your story to all of the federal agencies that you're directly impacted with. So we need you to share that information with us as well. So when you're having a challenge with a grant program or with a service that you're providing to your students that is funded, please let us know. Is there an efficiency that we can fix with that? Is there a challenge with that grant program? Does the reporting not make any sense? Or have you received a letter and your program is being frozen? Has your funding stopped? We can't help fix that unless we know. So please reach out and share with us and let us know how your funding is being impacted, how your programs, how your services are being impacted, because we want to make sure that we can provide real-time service to you. And then for our strategies, I wanted to talk a little bit about the way that we are really sharing TCU stories throughout Indian country. Our work is being enhanced at the moment, thinking about a national coalition. So the Coalition for Tribal Sovereignty, it is a group right now of 35 Native serving organizations, all advocacy related, that are coming together in direct response to what the administration is attempting to do in a number of fronts. So we're your voice in ensuring that tribal colleges are being heard through all levels. So if there is an impact at Interior, if there's an impact at NSF, if there is an impact at housing, we're talking about the impact that that's going to have on our tribal college students. We also work very, very closely with the National Indian Education Association and non-Native organizations such as APLU, which is the organization that represents all of our land grant and university systems. So I want you to know, I think just from this slide, is that you're not in a vacuum. And I know that you can often feel that way in your communities. You can feel that way when you're working directly with your students. You maybe have 140 faculty and staff, and you're working day in and day out in that one space, but you're not alone. Not only do you have the other 35 TCUs that are standing shoulder to shoulder with you, but you have a huge coalition as well as other national organizations that are very, very aware and are carrying your stories and are carrying your needs at a national level. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that you are loved and supported in a variety of ways and being prayed over in so many different spaces that you might not be immediately aware of.
Thank you. I'm going to move to a little bit about the college fund strategies. So way before all of this came to be, I shared with the team, we have a mission. Our mission is focused on Native student access and success with higher education, the capacity of the tribal colleges, and working with our other, like our sister organization, AHEC, and other partners. There's lots going on, I tell the team, and a lot of hard to know, like what to focus on. So let's stick to our mission. Let's keep our focus there and make sure that we're working with our students. So keeping those student pathways open so that students see that college is still an opportunity for them, or credentialing is still an opportunity for them. They might feel unwelcome with a college experience, but for us as Native people, we need our students to be educated. We need our people to be educated, to be able to take care of all of our resources and take care of the futures. Supporting the TCUs remains one of the areas that we continue to focus on, providing both continuation of the grant programs that we have, but doing things like this. Making sure that we bring faculty together so that they have that opportunity to network and learn with each other. And then looking at funder opportunities. So if you're familiar with the College Fund was established by AHEC in 1989 so that we could bring what we call private sector dollars to the tribal colleges, at that time for scholarships. And then it kind of grew into supporting other kinds of capacities. So part of our focus is always to try to increase our funder relationship so that we can bring more money in and we can have more resources for scholarships and other kinds of support. We work with a lot of partners also. Our partners Although we are active in organizations like the National Congress of American Indians meetings and stuff like that, our primary focus is to partner with other education organizations like the College Access Network. And also the College Funds has a very strong voice in philanthropy. We are one of the largest Native-led, Native-serving nonprofits. On average, we raise around $50 million a year. We have around $200 million in assets. So that makes us a really big player in philanthropy. So we take advantage of that and advocate not just for Native education, but for all of Indian country to get more money. So I mentioned Native Ways Federation, which is a national nonprofit that the College Fund was a founder of. Our strategies in the moment, of course, I just was saying to be that voice in Native higher education, Native nonprofits. Although the College Fund's primary focus is tribal colleges and tribal college students, Native students at other institutions don't have a lot of advocates, and we're happy to be their voice. We're happy to advocate for them. We have communication priorities, and so if you go to the College Fund's website, you will see the ways that we're educating students and their families about the impact of what's happening in DC. We educate and support TCUs as they navigate the impact of what's happening. And we provide the public and our supporters with information. So we actually have a website that I'll share in a little bit that looks directly at educating the public about Native people. Ahniwake and I wanted to point out an example, though, of how our organizations collaborate. So AHEC and the College Fund work together on the Cultivating Native Student Success Initiative, which many of you may be familiar with. That is a strategic enrollment management initiative to help tribal colleges increase the number of students who attend their institutions and the success those students have. And we're really happy to partner with Achieving the Dream, a long partnership. So the final two slides we have is how to connect with the College Fund. This will go to my blog. I'm like, I am so cool. I have my own QR code.
She is.
Yeah. When people told me I could have that, I was like super impressed because that tech thing.
I love that.
Yeah. So, but I do, the College Fund writes and educates a lot using our blog space. So we might write about programming, but we also write about other issues, like we just have one coming out on the meaning of sovereignty. And what do we mean by that when Native people talk about sovereignty? So there are two main resources for the College Fund are our website, where there are lots of reports and articles and stories from students and just tons of stuff on our website that are excellent. But we also have the Standing with Native Students website, which is more donor-oriented. So it has a lot of really basic information, like what are we talking about when we talk about treaty rights. It's a very good place for you to steer your friends, family members who might not know a lot about Native people. They can go there and learn. It's a really excellent site for that. And ta-da, AHEC has their own QR code as well.
I'm not nearly as cool, so that does not go to my blog.
Oh. Darn.
It does not. I'm so
We're going to get you one.
Well, no, that means I have to write. This actually goes to our government relations page. So if you're interested in our advocacy efforts, the work that the coalition is doing, you can find all of that information on this site. And then, if you back out of it, you can find other things. But again, not my blog.
Oh, well, she has to have one with her picture at least, right? Let's vote.
No, let's not.
We'll turn it back over to Heidi.
Well, Chris.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I was learning so much. Thank you. Thank you. So now I want to give President Caldwell time to reflect and share his thoughts about our current environment, where we're going, and how his TCU is responding. I have a couple of tough questions. Let's see here. Okay. Dr. Caldwell, can you talk about some of the more significant impacts of the policy changes on your institution, the College of Menominee Nation? Is it on?
Yes. All right. Also, Ahniwake, greetings everyone. So my Menominee name is Ahniwake, and my English name is Chris Caldwell. I serve as the president, but before I start, I just want to say, man, beautiful place. We really appreciate Red Lake Nation hosting us here. And as I was sitting through the morning, through the sessions, it did make me think I don't appreciate our faculty enough. So I just wanted to say thank you to our College of Menominee Nation faculty, but also tribal college faculty across the board. Thank you all for being the people on the front line with our students. Even if we weren't dealing with what we just talked about here, what Cheryl and Ahniwake shared with us, every day I know that our faculty are doing a lot of work and changing lives. So just wanted to say, Matt Chwaiwanen, big thank you for your work. So even though, yeah, round of applause, thank you. It definitely makes my work a little easier on that front, because then I'm just stuck up in my office dealing with all this stuff, helping to create a shield as I was envisioning it, trying to help as these policies are coming down, not so much just hide our faculty from these things, but to create a shield so that the faculty and the students can continue to engage in teaching and learning, which is the heart work of our institutions. You know, that's why we exist. And so when I think about what Ahniwake and Cheryl talked about, I was thinking of a movie, and I don't know if people have seen this movie, Land of Bad, where the unit's going through the jungle to the mission, and you have the guys up in the Reaper drones or all of the equipment that's both monitoring and sharing information and resources. But I feel like that, you know, with AHEC and College Fund, the things that we are able to do as an administration in response to what's happening through the federal policy and all of the other issues, we're being fed real-time information. And even though they said they need it from us, we need it from them, because as tribal colleges, we're pretty small with our resources. This puts us at an advantage that I think we'd struggle a lot more if we didn't have that support. So I just wanted to thank them as well. So one of the big things as an institution, when January 18th rolled around, we all knew something was going to be different. It wasn't going to be the same either coming out of Biden's administration or even the same with Trump's first administration. We knew it was going to be different, and it was different, but I think the speed with which and the multitude of things that were happening, it was like trying to sort through as things were flying at you. Okay, what really is important to block and to focus on, and what's just fluff that, you know, you just ignore that for now. And the funding freeze was definitely the big one. One of the grants a lot of our grants had been froze at that time, like everybody else. Created a little bit of panic for a lot of people. But I think with myself and my team, the big thing was remaining calm, understanding the facts of the situation, and figuring out what we needed to focus on. But that was a big one. You know, once your money's frozen and you don't have access to pay your people, that does become concerning. But we assessed what we were looking at. Stuff started opening, grants started opening. We had some precautionary cost containment measures at the beginning, only to slow spending until we had a chance to understand. And we regularly communicated either through online president's message meetings or emails on a weekly basis, often a combination of college fund and AHEC information mixed with what we were seeing. And then and just keeping faculty and staff updated, students, our board. And the big one that ended up being the issue was our USDA Next Gen. That was shut down. That was a $9 million grant that we had partnered with Lakota Ojibwe University, a couple of our tribal organizations, Native American Center for Health Professionals at UW-Madison, AHEC, some other evaluation folks. All of that came to a stop. All of our tribal community grant funding programs, student supports just came to a stop with that one. And so we did the precautionary cost containment, but one of the big things I think for TCUs that we really had to wrestle with was, what is that balance of how far are we able to carry things forward if we know we're not going to get reimbursed? And so we are constantly reassessing that. And I think eventually we, through that combined work, I feel like we did put a lot of pressure on elected officials who were happy to just be quiet about things, and they couldn't be quiet. So a couple of weeks ago, that Next Gen grant opened back up. So we're cautiously moving forward with that one now, and I think that's probably the biggest learning lesson from the initial policy was just being even more mindful of how we spend our money and how quickly we expend our money. So I wanted to say that part, and then I think the other part is the DEI issue and how I feel like it really, we understand our mission is built from our tribe's sovereignty, but I think it really reinforced for our folks the deepness that it's our mission as a TCU is rooted in our chartering tribe's sovereignty and being that extension of that long history of knowledge system, place-based knowledge system, culturally relevant higher education institution. So there's a lot that I wrote down that policy impacts, they're still ongoing. We're still figuring out what to focus on, what not to focus on. All the advocacy efforts too, I would say AHEC had us in DC the week after the inauguration. So maybe some of you students were flooding the streets, visiting our elected officials' offices. And so we did have one of them come visit our campus not too long ago. And I think that is helpful as well, letting folks know that you're not alone. And I can hear that, I can see that, but passing that on to faculty so that you know there's people working on it and you can just focus on teaching. That to me is the important part of it. I'll stop there.
Wonderful, thank you. You kind of started answering the other two questions that we have for you, and you have talked a lot about your role as president and creating a safe and protected environment for your faculty so that they can do the same for their students. So can you talk a little bit more about how have you as a TCU president been responding to these changes internally to create a safe environment where faculty can teach and students can learn?
Yeah, and I have several of our faculty sitting here right in front of me. So if you see their heads going like this or going like this, you'll know where I really stand. But we really worked to make sure that people were informed as much as possible. To a certain extent, we didn't know what was going on. And so sometimes there wasn't communication just because we didn't know what was going on. And I think through like I had mentioned before, just trying to message in different ways. And there was so much. I would go from my team to our board, to our tribal government, to the intertribal governments in Wisconsin, and then our elected officials. And sometimes closing that loop and coming back and summarizing that work with our faculty and staff, knowing that, okay, we're working on it. I know there's concerns there. So I think that was a big part of at least trying to get some form of regular messaging out, just to let folks know we are working on things. The other thing that, and more recently, that it's kind of started to come into the messaging is that we also don't want people to think that nothing's going to happen, because things are happening, things that are beyond our control. And so we'll work as hard as we can to address what we can, but there will still be impacts. And we just can't say for sure what those impacts will be or look like in certain cases. So, but I still think the messaging is important there for creating that kind of that, another movie reference when Hogwarts was under attack and they all came out and pointed their wands up and created that force field. I kind of picture it like that. So
That's our next board meeting picture.
yeah, I'm kind of I like referencing movies a lot. Usually people don't watch the movies I watch, so yeah.
I want it to be a reefer drone, so.
All right, there you go. And yeah, so those are a number of ways that we've worked to try to create that sense of safety. One that I would say I didn't do enough of was talking specifically to the faculty. I know I did talk to the student government on a couple of occasions, but I also feel like that taught me that, because the student government was still starting to rise up after the pandemic, they've been pretty inactive over time, and their voice was coming back. And so they asked me questions to the point where we'll see when I talk to faculty, but the students had me heavily sweating when they were asking me questions. And so that means they're pretty good questions. But yeah, just and that really points to something said this morning about the relationship that we have to have with each other, irregardless of our role. How do we connect with each other? We're all human beings, but we have different responsibilities. So how do we work together to look at how do we help our institutions and our students weather this storm that we're in today?
And just one final question. So Ahniwake and Cheryl kind of wrapped up by talking about strategies. And so can you just share with us your final thoughts about what you think faculty should know about how TCUs are responding to these changes? Anything else you want to share with us?
I think for our faculty who are here, what Ahniwake and Cheryl shared with us definitely is something to consider. You see all the work that's happening on your behalf as tribal college faculty, so take solace in that, take heart in that. The comment that we have allies, we have friends beyond the TCU world, that's another one that faculty should really think about, that, you know, we're not out here alone. We're part of a larger collective. Another quote from this morning, together we are stronger. So just take heart in that. The other part is, early on, one of the messages I sent is, if you know of a program you're a part of, or you engage in this funding source or not, become an expert in that, knowing not just where the funding comes from or even how you might budget and spend it, but what is the policy behind that funding, And as you become the expert, you can then share what you're hearing and seeing with our CMN administration or tribal college administration, because then that just increases our ability to scan what's happening out there. And in that way, you're also contributing to the work. And the other thing, and this is where I really enjoyed like sitting and kind of leaning in, listening to Cheryl and Ahniwake talking. The future of TCUs is going to be different. We don't totally know what that looks like, but for the College of Menominee Nation, one of the things that we are looking at is increasing our presence in terms of economic development, workforce development initiatives at a regional level, and focusing on not just how do we serve our students who are on our current reservation lands, but on our ancestral lands. So we have 10 million acres of ancestral lands, and we reside currently on 230,000 acres, heavily forested. That's what we're known for, but that's where the majority of our focus is. And my question is, but there are other Menominee people on our ancestral lands who don't have access to our college right now. How do we fix that as well? So that's another strategy point that we're looking at. And then the other thing is just keep doing what you're doing. Everything I saw this morning and what I know of our tribal college faculty, there's a lot more heavy lifting than just preparing a curriculum, teaching, clocking out, and then you're done. It's a 24-hour job, and I really do appreciate everything that our tribal college faculty do on a continuous basis. So appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, President Caldwell, for your comments. Now it is time for you to ask questions. So I'm going to hand over this microphone to Cheryl. So if you have a question, please go ahead and raise your hand. And then if I can have whoever's answering the question to repeat it so that it's picked up on the video. Anyone have a question?
So thank you to AHEC with sponsoring the student conference which is here. The National Technical University has a wide variety of student body that goes and faculty. So thanks. How do you forecast the current administration impacting these conferences for students? Do you feel that your funding is secure for right now? Is there anything that we need to do to help with that? From an advocacy perspective, telling stories, giving you that evidence that you talked about?
So the question was, do we feel secure in our funding, and specifically around the Student Success Conference that takes place? And I'm realizing that my poker face needs a lot of work lately. So this specific piece is actually funded by a private funder. So we feel very secure in that as long as the grant cycle continues and that funding continues. So we feel secure in that. But we're a nonprofit that does work for tribes and tribal colleges. So as you are looking at and feeling the pain of what the administration might be doing and funding and prioritizing, we are as well. So we're doing all of the same exercises that you heard President Caldwell talk about, and reconfiguring and rethinking, and just like every other national nonprofit or small nonprofit is doing. So this particular piece is a private funder though, and we feel secure in that. So thanks.
Is there any job departments or any kind of discipline that you would like to see the youth pursue in order to secure a better future for the Indian country? There's a specific discipline that you would like them to pursue, or what would you like to see more of indigenous people in different areas of the industry?
Teachers. I think that, I've worked in the tribal college movement for a really long time, and we've always struggled to have enough of our people be trained as teachers. And I think the tribal colleges, have a lot of space to grow in that. I don't know about your communities, but my communities in South Dakota and other places are getting a lot of, used to be Teach for America teachers. Now it's a lot of Filipino teachers. And so that's an area I think about, that it would be great if we had more teachers graduate from our institutions.
Yeah, the question about where we would want to see more programming for whatever career or field. Teachers are definitely one of them. That's one of our most popular programs, and we can't get them graduated fast enough. They're getting pulled out the door by either the tribal school districts or the surrounding rural school districts. One of the areas we have been working on as well, though, is our partnership with Menominee Tribal Enterprises, which is our sawmill and forestry operation. They're really struggling just to fill the sawmill shifts. They have a big mill, small mill, and each morning they have to make a decision of what they will staff rather than run both mills. So it ranges from just that entry level sawmill to I don't know what all the positions are in a sawmill, but business related and all that. But even the people who go out and manage the forest and set it up for the harvest. So a lot of the natural resource positions like that, because in northeastern Wisconsin, that whole industry has gone on a decline. But that's at the heart of the Menominee Reservation, is our sustainable forest. So we continue to hold that industry. I saw healthcare was a big one that had a lot of need, and definitely in our tribal communities, different nursing programs, doctors, community practitioners, different careers like that in the health sciences.
So I would add that I think I would love to see BIA and IHS, as well as our tribal nations, start developing a workforce system or a workforce requests, right, that are funneled and worked through with the TCUs. I think our tribes, just as Chris was explaining, the job forecasting that they should be doing so that we can ensure that we have our own workforce in place to support our tribal nations and their enterprises is critical. But we are also the pipeline for BIA and for BIE and for IHS, right? All of those federal systems based on the trust and treaty responsibility that are supposed to be happening on our lands, that we should be filling those positions. And so how can TCUs fill those vacancies? And that looks different in every area, right, based on what we're looking for. And then whatever obstacles, we just found out something silly about nursing, that our nurses that are graduating are being graduated at a GS2, and IHS won't hire until it's a GS4. So our nurses go unemployed. Well, we have a critical nursing shortage, right? So I think if we had and could help facilitate those partnerships and create that communication, we can solve those problems, and we can start filling those positions with Native people in a much more efficient way.
Any other questions? Well, sure.
Are we doing anything about state trades programs within our colleges? Step trades,
Skill trades.
Something we should be including for our colleges.
I think so. I actually think stuck here. I actually think the foundation of tribal colleges are kind of built off that community college model, that practical application. The land grant identity was added later, which includes a number of other different ways of teaching and learning. But I think trades are definitely something that we're also missing in terms of engaging our. There's always that question: where are young men at? And you think of trades programs; it's for both women and men, but is that a way to bring back more of our young males to gain a degree or a place in an industry that would engage them or develop their interests? You know, it's not like a end point, but maybe it's a way to get them started and get them thinking. The only part with trades for us and maybe for other tribal communities is that we don't have that type of industry, so they have to go out and work in the trades in different places, but they could then bring that knowledge back. So I think there's a big opportunity there. And definitely when we think of this administration in a question of, we're so focused on what are they cutting, what are they not funding, I think we're starting to look at that question of, okay, what will they support then? And I think the trades was kind of the focus of our legislative summit this year with AHEC. So that is an important area for our communities.
We just had this exact conversation with the Department of Education and with the Department of Commerce. If we are looking at we're going to make America great again, you know, through manufacturing and through our trade deficit, then we've got to have some place to build all of these manufacturing sites. And that's going to require not only a skilled workforce, but folks like builders and carpenters. And so we're talking a lot about how do we, once you start pinpointing and identifying those places, that tribal colleges are the place to help create and provide the skilled workforce that's going to be needed to do that within the trades and other career votex. So that is absolutely a space where we have a shared need. And they have a demand, and we can help work to identify solutions together. That's not quick, right? That's 10 years down the line maybe that we'll see those, but that's legislation that's getting drafted now, that's appropriations that's starting now. So we're starting to look at ways that we can partner with private industry as they're starting to go in. Can we create a requirement that they're partnering with their local tribal college to ensure that we're developing the careers and the positions to fill those slots? So I think there's an incredible amount of opportunity there, and we're absolutely thinking about it and looking for I hate this word, but right, the synergy to ensure that TCUs are a part of that solution.
The reason I mention it is because I personally was a principal for General Motors for 4 years with education for one to have, but it's not going to the liberal arts, sciences, and so forth. So other puts the framework of going to further institutions, and sometimes just 2 years is what they do, what they do.
Any more questions?
So, Caldwell, have you gotten a distance learning program at all through your institution?
In terms of, we have a Kashina and a Green Bay campus, so we do offer courses over there, but we just started the fully online courses. So in the fall, spring, and now we have some data to assess. One thing with us, the college, similar to Menominee, is we don't rush into important decisions. So I think right now we are assessing that opportunity because we feel like that could be a way to serve the dispersed Menominee population, and by extension, like Red Lake Nation here, I'm sure you probably start attracting students from different tribal affiliations beyond just I'm looking around, I don't know who works here, but I was looking for a nodding head there, but I'm assuming that in the urban populations, it's that mix of intertribal affiliations. And so if we can better serve our Menominee people in urban settings like Milwaukee, Chicago, that intertribal setting, then we have that capacity, that distance learning or online access that we can build from.
Oh, thank you so much, everybody, for your questions. Really, really good questions, so thank you. So I want to give time for our panelists to give their final thoughts for us today. So the question is, what advice do you have for us? What call to action do you have? What do you hope everyone here today will do or think as we leave this session and return home? So Ahniwake, I'll start with you, and then Cheryl, and then President Caldwell.
Gosh, this is a lot of pressure. I'm sure I was given this question ahead of time and I should have thought of it. No, that's okay. I can come up with something. So, I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been thinking about this a lot. What do we do? And I was having lunch today with some folks from Turtle Mountain, and we talked about this a little bit. I'm not a big fan of this word resilience, because we're resilient because we have to be. I'm not resilient because I want to be, right? I'm not resilient because I chose to be. I didn't want the trauma. My family didn't want the trauma. We didn't want all this, right? I mean, we want full funding. We're not resilient because we want to be. We're resilient because we have to be. But because we've had to be, we have been incredibly brilliant and innovative. And that's what you are doing. Tribal colleges will look different in 4 years. And you are going to help us shape what that looks like. It's your innovation and your creativity that's going to help us figure out how we educate our students in 4 years from now. Because my job right now is to ensure that there will be TCUs in 5 years. We are preserving and protecting and hunkering down as much as possible so that the next 2 generations can start to rebuild. So my call to action for you would to be as creative and innovative as you can, because now is the time for us to revision and to be bold. Now is the time for us to lean into our sovereignty in a way that we have never done before, because we cannot guarantee that the federal government is going to be there in the way that it has been. So it's up to us to figure out those answers and those solutions. So my call to action is to be brave and to be innovative and to be bold, and helping us to identify what those solutions are, because your students are the next generation of what the trust and treaty responsibility looks like. We're sovereignty in action right now. So help us come up with what those solutions are. Thank you.
That was really good. I can see those on T-shirts. Right, I always think like that's a great phase. They are the next generation of what sovereignty looks like. That's really important. Before I offer my advice that I've been giving, because I am older now, and I have worked in the tribal colleges since 1981. And so I've had a lot of experience working with founders of the tribal college movement, which has been part of what inspires me. But before I share that, I wanted to go back to where I talked about how much money the college fund raises and say what we do with it. So the college fund, first I want to qualify this by saying it costs money to raise money. So the college fund does invest in a significant public education, donor campaigns, but over 75% of the money that we raise goes out to students and tribal colleges and into support services. I think this year, and Dave could correct me if I'm way off base here, but I think it's over $20 million that we will be giving out in student scholarships and support. So that's huge. It's huge. And And we tell our team, I tell the students, it's easy to do this. It's not, but I tell them it's easy to do it because their stories are amazing stories. What students experience and what the tribal colleges do are just, they're incredibly easy stories to tell. They're hard stories, but they're incredibly easy to share. So I wanted to note that we do that. But I had been asked a few weeks ago to talk to a group of leadership awardees from First Nations, from the Luce Fellows, and I wasn't sure. What could I possibly say that would be helpful right now? Because it feels so wild. It feels so chaotic, and it's scary. So I thought I would fall back on my own teachings. There is a reason why the Lakota people say Midako ye oyasi, to remind us that we're all connected to each other, that we're all related to each other, and that we should act that way. So renew and keep your close connections. I, like everyone, am guilty of, I'd rather just sit down and stare at the TV than call my girlfriend or, even check on one of my grandkids because I'm tired. But I made myself the promise that I would connect and stay connected because we need that right now. We've always needed it, but this is a time that really pulls that forward. Lakotas like to say nake nula wa'u, that we are ready for whatever comes to us. When the inauguration first happened, I think I joined many people in not believing that it was happening, and chastised myself for not being ready. And so I tell myself now we have to be ready all the time. We have to be on top of this. Lakota is the other thing that I think of. Keep your ceremonies and traditions alive. Now is not the time to back away from your celebrations, your honorings, your memorials, all of the responsibilities that we have. Now is the time to do even more of those because it feels like a time of scarcity and we need to act with the abundance that our ceremonies and traditions require of us. And then the last thing there were other things that I share, but one of the things that I like to share is be responsible news consumers. I tell people, even people with doctorates repost fake news. Even people with doctorates don't know what news sources are accurate. And you may not like this administration. That does not mean that everything that's on social media about this administration is true. So I really encourage people to be good news consumers and to fact check so that you make sure that when you learn something or you share something, you're sharing something that's true. I think that can be really valuable lesson for people to learn. So that's my advice, is to try to live abundantly at a time when the people in leadership are telling us we should be scared and we should live with scarcity. So, thank you.
I went in. So I was going to say similar to what Cheryl said. Stay out of the Facebook comment section and your day will go well. But the other part is just thinking in terms of one of our leaders who passed last year, Ada Deer. Was that last? Yeah. Ada Deer, who many people knew across Indian country. She was Menominee. She did a lot of things. She was Assistant Secretary of Interior, but also our founding president, Dr. Fowler, had passed around the same time. And so we were reflecting on a lot on what we were having to deal with. And it reminded me, thinking of that time, made me think of when I first started as president with my team. It was a couple weeks right before the pandemic started. And I think our saving grace was we didn't know what normal was. And so we were able to maintain that sense of calm. We understood the seriousness of the situation, but we didn't unnecessarily panic. And it made me think of what Ada said, that when she was talking to the tribe about, I forget what she was presenting, and the quote was, just because there's a law in place doesn't mean you have to give up, change it. And so she really emphasized that just because there's something in front of you, you know, it doesn't mean you just stop and give up, you continue forward. And that is representative of our people, the Menominee, through the termination era into restoration, which was a new era for us of tribal sovereignty. So I would extend those same lessons of just don't give up, even when things are dire. There are things that we can look forward to, our family, our friends, even our students we're working with, and thinking about the future that they have because of the work you're doing. So Matt Schweiwanen, again, thank you.